So I'm here with Leif. We're in the middle of rehearsing this wonderful concerto within a very wonderful program, and it's astounding to me to think that you first played with the Bergen Philharmonic when you were 17 years old, which is a while ago. Not a huge while ago, but it's certainly a while ago.
I think I just turned 18.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, well, I mean, that was a huge thing for me. And it wasn't only a normal subscription concert, it was the closing concert of the Bergen Festival and Grieg concerto, which there was such a tradition of people coming here playing.
Had you played it before, the Grieg?
I'd tried it out with a amateur orchestra at my home place in Haugesund, and just a month before to try it out. But I did study it because I was asked to play it at the festival, and I'm glad I did, because it's such a young man's piece, the Grieg, and to then study it when I was 17 without actually knowing it much from recordings and so on. So the experience of every note being so important and learning it from the score rather than knowing it too well.
This program is, on paper, it looks like one of those very, very traditional get an audience in program. It's all Russian. It has, a piece of Tchaikovsky, a piece of Rachmaninoff, and an opener by Stravinsky. But in a way, everything is subverted, I think, in this program, which is sort of wonderful. We can talk about the Stravinsky and Tchaikovsky in a bit, but they're, for me, both very unusual pieces and very elusive as well. But perhaps the most elusive thing for certainly audiences, I'm not sure about performers, but certainly audiences, is this concerto, which the audience, at least on the streaming, have just heard you play.
Well, the fourth Rachmaninoff is really not known, and also among musicians, and I'm playing it quite a bit at the moment and coming to orchestras, and they have never played it. I don't know if this orchestra has played it. It's
not in living
not
memory,
clear, no. And with most orchestras this is the case. They don't know the piece, so that is of course challenging, because it's a difficult piece to put together, as we know now. I mean, it is challenging for the pianist as all the other piano concertos, but it's really challenging for the conductor and the orchestra as well, because it's such a free music and so full of rhythmic impulses, and he was influenced by jazz. He was influenced by all the new directions in the 20th century, which he sort of refused to take in. But at the same time, of course, he was influenced. So he would say that he didn't like Prokofiev's music, but then you hear certain passages in this concerto, and you think, oh, well, that's Prokofiev, isn't it? And so there's so many influences coming together, and of course, still there are these beautiful tunes and these heartbreaking harmonies, right? I mean, this late Rachmaninoff has such a nostalgic quality about it.
Nostalgic, but in no way cliched. It feels very, very personal in this piece, in a way that maybe more than the others somehow. There's something very fragile in it,
yes.
I think.
I mean, and for audiences, of course, you don't walk out of this after this concerto and you're not naturally whistling the tune like you maybe do with the second and third. It doesn't have these long sweeping melodies.
No.
But there's so much, it's certainly not boring. I mean, it has melodic invention, it has rhythmic interplay with the orchestra, and it's so vivid, so alive.
I totally agree.
But restless music, right? I mean, it's very sort of. It's much more modern than his other styles. I don't know if there's any piece that can compare in this way. Maybe symphonic dances or
maybe, but the narrative somehow is clearer, isn't it? In the symphonic dances, you know where you're going, and even if the second movement has that sort of slightly destructive decadence, you know where it is, and whereas, I mean, we talked a little bit about the end of the first movement of this, which I find completely fascinating, because it feels like he just slams the door on the possibility of lyricism at the end of it, and it's brutal. I mean, it's really as a dramatic gesture, and the piece feels to me like a kind of silent movie accompaniment in some ways. I mean, is it very biographical for him, or is there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the piece was also problematic for him because of the reception. It had such a bad reception from critics, and I guess also from audiences in the beginning. I mean, after the second and third concerto, people expected the fourth concerto from Rachmaninoff, and they got this so elusive and so strange in comparison. So apparently the reception was almost as bad as for his first symphony, after which he went into depression.
When you're in the piece, it feels like it is actually already constructed as a response to the criticism he got eventually for the piece. It somehow feels the wrong way around.
And it's schizophrenic because then comes these big tunes, like you say in the end of the first movement. There's this beautiful violin line with arpeggios in the piano, going on in sequences, and he inserts also the Dies Irae motive, which he would do in all his later pieces. And then suddenly it's like he says, "Oh, enough of this beauty," you know. Finish with a piece, and it's very vertical. Those last bars of the first movement, it's almost like some kind of fanfare by Copland or Stravinsky kind of.
Do you know what I thought today when we did it? The way that the lyricism is cut short. It reminded me of a composer we both love, Janacek.
Oh
It
yes,
had a quality of that.
this abrupt quality. Yeah.
After a moment of great yearning lyricism. So we start the program with this wonderful new discovery of Stravinsky.
Well, talking about discovery, I mean, tell me about this. How was this discovered? It was a couple of years ago, or
a couple of years ago, in the about 18 months ago, in the library of the St. Petersburg Conservatoire. So you know, the conservatoire that Tchaikovsky had such a strong relationship anyway with. And
how do these things happen? I mean, somebody walks down in the basement and starts looking at.
Yeah, we should recatalogue that pile of manuscripts that's on the floor there, and they find this 10-minute piece this 10-minute piece that Stravinsky wrote for the memorial of his beloved teacher, private teacher, Rimsky-Korsakov. And Gergiev did the first performance soon afterwards.
And Stravinsky thought that this was lost. I mean, he was sure that.
Not sure how much he thought about it, but he did talk a lot about how close he was to Rimsky-Korsakov and you know what he owed to his musical style and the teachings that he had. I mean, for me, it's a wonderful discovery, and it's a Norwegian premiere of this piece. It's really. It's new to the orchestra, and it's certainly new to the audience.
It's a real event. I mean, and how close are we to the first famous pieces like the Firebird? Is this?
You hear things there. You hear things of that wonderful concert opener, which we've played here as well, Feu d'artifice, fireworks.
Yeah.
Also a very early piece, and you certainly hear elements of that febrile opening of the Firebird and these little cascading wind sections. But what fascinates me about it is it's very pre those that sort of kaleidoscopic quality of all that Diaghilev music which comes later, and there's a rawness about it. It's got these just opening unison double basses and one little gesture in the violas that descends. Is this more like you feel the Russian tradition from Mussorgsky and things like this? Yeah? Exactly that. And even the motif in the harmony of the bassoons that comes at the beginning, it reminds me of Boris. And that piece, when I first got to know it, really pointed me to certain elements of Russian music, many of which are in this program.
So less sophisticated in a way, but more the raw background.
And actually, like Grieg, taking in a different direction, but you don't. The sum of the parts is much more than is written on the page. When you see a Mussorgsky score, it's also lean. I mean, there are hardly any lines, but somehow out of that comes this exceptional hinterland and depth. And this Stravinsky piece has an element of that.
Yeah.
3 bars with just a beautiful Boucher stopped horn solo with nothing else going on at all. It's like nothing else I know of his. Yet there's a fingerprint there of what he would become later.
What is to come, yeah. And then you're finishing the program with a famous symphony, but you call it elusive. I mean, for me, it was my first obsession with Tchaikovsky. I think I was 15 and had a cassette with London Philharmonic, High Tink, and I listened to it day and night for a while. So much beauty there. Why is it elusive? When we think of Tchaikovsky,
the very, very popular pieces are the ballets, perhaps the Fifth and Sixth Symphonies, the concerti, and I was thinking about this morning. Maybe those are the pieces that stand up without knowing so much about him himself. I think the first movement of the Fourth Symphony, it's a huge span of music. I mean, it's one of the longest symphonic movements he wrote. And this element of dance, but not dance, something which can't quite, the restlessness within the dance, it never quite achieves its culmination. I found a route into it through conducting Onegin, the opera, a lot. And it's something to do with his fragility and his soul that, you could say it's as much Pushkin, the opera, as it is Tchaikovsky, but both of them had the element of fragility. And
does it feel for you like there's almost program behind here?
Yeah, very much actually. Yeah. And as much as Onegin, I find the connection between these two pieces is the more I do both, the more I see. Even the gesture at the end of the second movement, that lovely canzona, where the violins have ya da da ya da da da, and then there are these pointed chords, ya da, sort of dismissing it. It's like the photographic negative of the prelude of Onegin, which has a lyric Tatiana phrase, and then Onegin, shutting down with these clipped chords, and I think it's very autobiographical.
Interesting.
So I think it's really up to the audience to decide how much real joy is in the end of the piece. I mean, you can take it as an abstract piece of music, or for me, it's much more interesting to find Tchaikovsky's hinterland in there somewhere, and just
right.
In a way, from performance to performance, you come out with different results. Some are more joyous, some are more melancholic.
That's very true. I really look forward to hear the different layers now of this great piece. Have a good performance.
Thank you.